And I want to thank the Homeownership Preservation Coalition and the Public Justice Center and all of you involved in this process for doing what you're doing. You know, on my way here, I was just thinking that when people are foreclosed upon, it's assumed that it's just the owner that is in trouble. And our office get calls on a daily basis from people who find themselves in that predicament where they're renting. And there's a reason for that. Back when people were getting these mortgages and no doc loans and what have you, what happened was you had a lot of people who were purchasing investment property. They weren't necessarily living in the property, they were investing in it, and therefore they had tenants. And now that we see this snowball foreclosure problem happening, and although Maryland, because of our Attorney General and our Governor, and have done such an outstanding job, we're seeing the mayor seen a decline in foreclosures, the fact still remains that a lot of people are being foreclosed upon. And the tenants are sitting in those houses. So although a house, one investment piece of property may, there's only one, maybe only one investor that's being foreclosed upon, there may be 10 or 12, maybe 3, 4, 5, whatever families within that house, within that facility. And so you can see how this happens. Just last week, we held a hearing here in Baltimore where we dealt with the issue of foreclosure, and the whole idea, and the mayor was kind enough to provide some very important testimony, and we talked about how when these things happen and there are no programs to help people stay afloat, then they have just a tremendous negative effect on communities, but they also have a very negative effect on people. And I must tell you that Congressman Sarbanes and I'm so glad that he's here, because he's been a tireless advocate with regard to these issues too. We've been doing everything in our power to try to provide on the federal level programs to help people get through the process of, say, modifying their mortgages, or we just voted last week on a piece that, a bill that was my bill, that it provided $1 billion for people who maybe had lost their jobs or were experiencing problems so that they could get emergency loans, and our Republican Congress canceled that program. So we still have a lot of work to do, and then this week we'll be addressing the issue of another program called HAMP, which again is one of those programs to try to help people modify their mortgages. And I confess, I don't think the federal government has done everything it needed to do with regard to making that program as effective and efficient as it can be. But the problem is going to be is that if that program is voted out of existence, there's nothing to replace it. So my point is that we, in the climate that we're in today, we're going to continue to see problems like this, where people are foreclosed upon, and then renters are affected. And I'm so glad that these two organizations and others are joining together to let people know that just because your landlord is foreclosed upon does not mean that you have to leave that place immediately. Housing is so difficult to come by. Reasonable housing, safe housing, housing where you can raise your children in a safe environment, in a clean environment, is hard to come by. And so we wanted to join forces with our City Council President Young, our Mayor, and certainly our Attorney General and Congressman Sarbanes. We've come here because we consider this very, very important. We want people to hold on to that opportunity to stay in that house as long as they can. And it's so good to know that the landlord has to give, or the new owner has to give, the 90 days notice, which is very, very significant. That gives a person an opportunity to get their affairs together, to be able to hopefully find another place, but more importantly, it also protects children. One of the things that we worry about so much, and I've heard Congressman Sarbanes talk about this a lot of time, is how we have to really try to protect children with regard to stability. That's very, very significant. A lot of people don't realize When you tell somebody you got to get up and move right away, that takes that child out of school, makes that child feel, it makes them feel very uncomfortable, and takes away stability. And when we take away stability from a child, I think it's one of the worst things that can be done. And so, again, I want to applaud all the organizations for doing this. I want you to keep on fighting. I want you to keep on fighting, and I beg you to. I want you to, because there are going to be moments where you're going to get a little bit discouraged, because you're going to see that maybe not everybody's as sensitive as you all are with regard to these issues. But I want you to know, in Washington, our delegation, our team, is 100% behind you, and we will do every single thing in our power to help you. May God bless.